The Prime Minister of the Netherlands is the head of the executive branch of the government of the Netherlands. The Prime Minister is the chair of the Council of Ministers and coordinates its policy with his cabinet. The current acting Prime Minister is Mark Rutte, who serves in a demissionary capacity after his resignation on the 15th of January 2021. Gradually the Prime Minister became an official function of government leader, taken by the political leader of the largest party. Since 1848, the role of the First Minister is relevant. In that year the Constitution of the Netherlands was amended to make ministers responsible to the States General and no longer responsible to the King, who acted as the leader of cabinet. Until 1901, the position chair of the Council of Ministers officially rotated between ministers. Between 1901 and 1945, the position formally still rotated, but prominent politicians could claim a rotation period of 4 years. In 1937, a separate Ministry of General Affairs was instituted, which was informally linked to the Prime Minister. Barend Biesheuvel was the last Prime Minister who was not the political leader of the largest party. In cabinet, his was actually the third largest. In 1983 the function of Prime Minister was laid down in the Constitution. The position of the Prime Minister has been enforced by the creation of the European Council. In November 2006, the rules of procedure of the Council of Ministers was changed to allow the Prime Minister to put any item on the agenda of the Council and longer have to wait for a minister to take the initiative. A change of the rules of procedure of the Cabinet in July 2008 allowed the Prime Minister to direct other ministers on the costs of the Royal House, which are covered by several ministries. Although the Prime Minister is the leading Dutch political figure and holder of the de facto highest office, they are not quite as powerful as the British Prime Minister and the German Chancellor. This is mainly because, historically, all Dutch ministers used to be responsible to the monarch. Ministers took turns to fill the position of Prime Minister, and in the role had little if any control over the other ministers. The Prime Minister's role gained importance when ministers became responsible to the Parliament, and the position became mostly reserved for the leader of the biggest political party in the House of Representatives. Still, because the position holds limited powers compared to its equivalent in other neighboring parliamentary democracies, the Prime Minister's role is described as primus inter pares. Following the constitutional review of 1983, the position of Prime Minister was formalized in the Dutch Constitution for the first time. According to the Constitution of the Netherlands, the government is constituted by the King and the ministers. The Constitution stipulates that the Prime Minister chairs the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers is no longer nowadays attended by the King. The Prime Minister chairs the weekly meetings of the Council of Ministers and has the power to set the agenda of these meetings. The Prime Minister is also Minister of General Affairs in the Binnenhof in The Hague. The official residence is the Catchuys. The last Prime Minister to live in the Catchuys was Dries van Agete. Incumbent Mark Rutte lives in a flat in downtown The Hague. The Prime Minister has no security detail. Although the Prime Minister is almost always the political leader of his party and a member of the House of Representatives, he is required to give up his seat for the duration of his tenure. As Dutch ministers are not allowed to be members of parliament, the Dutch electoral system makes it all but impossible for one party to win an outright majority in the House of Representatives. No party has done so since 1900. Hence, Dutch governments are always coalitions between two or more parties. After each election, the House appoints a scout to seek advice on how to interpret the election results. On the basis of this advice, the House appoints an informator to check on prospective coalitions and lead negotiations between potential partners. If successful, the House then appoints a formator, who concludes the talks between the members of the prospective coalition. The formator is almost always the leader of the largest party in the prospective coalition, and thus de facto Prime Minister designate. Prior to 2012, the monarch had a considerable role in these talks, but reforms in 2012 largely eliminated royal influence on the process. It usually takes several months of negotiations before a formator is ready to accept a formal royal invitation to form a government. The monarch then appoints the ministers and state secretaries, who then resign their seats in the House. A minister from the smaller coalition party usually becomes Deputy Prime Minister of the Netherlands. If there is a third or fourth party in the coalition, each has